Hi there. My name is Matt Eichelberger, and I run the Criminal Defense Division of Eichelberger Law Firm here in Jackson, Mississippi. We have clients all across the entire state of Mississippi and handle cases literally from the coast all the way up to the Tennessee line and every space in between. I want to talk with you for a bit about something called constructive possession. Now, we usually see this in drug cases, right? Sometimes in firearm cases or stolen goods cases, but usually in drug cases. Now, what is constructive possession? Well, it's the other way that possession can be proven besides actual possession. First, actual possession is where you have something in your hands or in your pocket. It's on you, right? That's actual possession. Constructive possession is everything else. So typically, where we see constructive possession cases are dealing with cars. That's where we see it a lot of times. Sometimes it's in homes, but a lot of times it's in cars. Okay. So let's say a person is driving down the road, they're pulled over, and there are drugs in plain view on the passenger seat right here. That's going to be an easy case of constructive possession just about every time. Okay. But there's a lot more to constructive possession cases, and I want to talk about that now. So, when they are trying to prove constructive possession, they have to prove one, that a person knew the substance was there. Okay. Number two, they knew what it was. And number three, that they had dominion and control over it, meaning they were exerting ownership over the space where it was. Okay. So you got to have knowledge and control of the area, not one or the other, but both. All right. So here's where it gets kind of interesting. Our Supreme Court, back 50 years ago, set forth the rule about constructive possession in a case called Curry versus State. And it has been followed by our appellate courts now ever since. The Mississippi Court of Appeals talked about it and relied upon it literally just last week, affirming a case out of Lincoln County, Mississippi, on a constructive possession ground. All right. So proximity is important, meaning being close to the drugs is important, right? When proving constructive possession. But that alone is not enough. And that's what our Mississippi Supreme Court has said over and over and over again. In fact, Curry, and I'm going to read from it now, proximity is usually an essential element, but by itself, it is not adequate in the absence of other incriminating circumstances. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. It's the other incriminating circumstances. Okay. And again, it's been reinforced over and over and over for years that that's the rule. Okay. Just because drugs are found on a premises that a defendant doesn't own, physical proximity alone is not enough to make them guilty of constructive possession. Let's look at a couple of examples. So let's say there's a person driving a truck down a road, and I've seen this multiple times over the course of my career. There's a person driving a truck down a road, and they've got a passenger in the truck. Okay. And in the center console, in a hidden compartment, and this is honestly, this is how a lot of drugs are moved around. Okay. Hollowed out in there is a good amount of methamphetamine, let's say, or cocaine, something that doesn't have a strong odor. Marijuana gets a little dicey because usually you can smell it, but those others you can't smell as easily, okay, especially if they're wrapped up well. So let's say it's in that center console and the guy's driving down the road in his truck. He gets pulled over for some reason, and for whatever reason, there's a valid search of the vehicle. Let's just say they're arresting him for some reason. Let's say he's got outstanding tickets or something he didn't take care of. So he's being cuffed. They're taking the vehicle in and they're doing an inventory search. Okay. And let's say during the course of the inventory search, as they're looking around, they notice there's something funny about that center console. They're in the back, they're flashing their flashlights around, they're looking, and they see that maybe there's a torn off little corner to a piece of the console, or something about the carpet doesn't lay right. So they go to look and they find that hidden compartment, and in there they find all the drugs. The driver is the record owner of the vehicle. Okay, their name's on the title. The passenger, not at all, just sitting there. Okay. Can the state go forward successfully with charges against the driver? Yeah, probably. There might be some arguing over the search and the stop and all those things. There's a lot of defenses still to sort through, but they've got a good to very good case against the driver. The passenger, on the other hand, they don't have a very good case on. All they have is proximity. And Curry versus State and all of the cases that have talked about it for 50 plus years now, this idea of constructive possession, they would tell you the state has a very poor case because unless the passenger said something like, I know that there's drugs in there and they're mine, or they tried to run away, or they did something to give some sort of indication they knew something was up. Um, there's no case against that defendant who's or against the passenger. He can't really be a defendant. He can be, but usually those cases wind up being dismissed after some good solid pushback from a defense attorney. I've had that happen even this year along these lines. So that gives you an idea as to what that looks like, right? Is you have a person who's just a passenger in a vehicle, it's not his vehicle, and there are drugs in the hidden compartment. That's a bad case for the prosecution against that defendant. It doesn't mean they won't try. Okay, doesn't mean they won't arrest them, doesn't mean they won't try to indict them, maybe even get an indictment, doesn't mean they won't take them to trial. But under our law in Mississippi, that is a hard case to win. And honestly, just on those bare facts alone, without any other circumstances as to that passenger that would be incriminating, even if they get a conviction, it would likely be overturned by our Mississippi Supreme Court. Okay. So let's say that things are a little bit different in that car. Okay. Let's say that you've got drug paraphernalia on the passenger. That might show that they had some tie to that, right? And it's a little bit better case for the prosecution at that point. And I mentioned earlier, like if they tried to run away, that would be a little bit better case for the prosecution. Um, let's say it wasn't in a hidden compartment. Let's say it was in a backpack behind the passenger seat. And in that backpack, the passenger had the passenger's clothes, wallet with an ID in it, that sort of thing. That's going to be the passengers. Then it's a better case for the driver, right? It makes sense because then you've got a passenger who's got that in their own possessions, right? Or along their own possessions. And they've got it kind of secreted away in a bag. The driver doesn't necessarily know about it. So those are some kind of real world variables that we see from time to time. Um, Also, you'll see shared residences where there are roommates and there are drugs in one room, or there's drugs in a common room. It can get very interesting at that point to delve into these facts and see whether or not they can actually prove constructive possession against anybody. Sometimes they can't. So that kind of gives you an idea as to how constructive possession works in Mississippi. This is a very well litigated area of Mississippi law. The rules are pretty clear cut, but the facts aren't always the same in every case. So that's why you have to really delve into these. You have to look very closely at body cam videos. You have to look very closely at reports and what people said or didn't say in order to figure out what the defense to that case may be or what the prosecution's case may look like. So that is an overview of constructive possession. Now, I know I talked about it with respect to drugs, but it also works in cases of firearms, stolen or by convicted felon, stolen goods, that sort of thing. So, all right, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us. Thanks.
Want to know more? Like and subscribe to our Eichelberger Law Firm channel to check out more videos on this and other important legal topics.